ボンジョーノアトゥッティ、どうもフィリップです。今日は日本でもおなじみのルパン三世の車、フィアット500、これのキーホルダーを作りたいと思います。Hi guys! So today I would like to make a Fiat 500 key ring or a key charm in sterling silver. So I hope you enjoy it. So I've taken a front view of the classic Fiat 500F and I've reduced it in size, and now I'm actually using a light box and some tracing paper to trace the outline of the car. I'm using some pencils and some rulers and trying to go over the general outline of the features of the car, such as the emblem, the bonnet, the windscreen, the tires, and nothing too intricate, just the general outside, as you can see from there, the outside. And then I reduced that, I copied the tracing paper and reduced it to size, and I've chosen to make it to 38%. And from there I'm just collecting the silver scrap, and I'm using a torch to melt it into an ingot. So as you can see from the ingot, now I'm putting it through the rolling mill to make it into a flat sheet. I think it was about 3 mil or probably 2.5 mil thick. I'm using a hydraulic press to straighten the sheet or the metal, the silver, and I'm using some emery paper to clean the surface. So I'm just quickly cutting out the car, which was reduced by 38%, and I'm using some spray adhesive to stick it onto the silver plate. And from there I'm using a saw frame and a 3/0 saw blade to carefully cut out the outside of the car, the outline of the car. So now that the car has been cut out using the saw frame, I'm using some files, flat files, needle files, and after that I'm also using some roll sanders to clean the edges of the car. After cleaning the sides of the car, I've used a engraver's bowl to clamp the car, and using a scriber I'm scribing the outline, the details of the car, so I can now work on engraving it, carving it and filing it. And before that I've stuck it onto a wooden block, and now I'm using an engraver to do the finer details of the car. As you can see, I'm actually working on the tires right now, taking metal off and getting some depths of field to make the car more three-dimensional. Now I'm using some twist drills and a ball burr to make a indication of where I'm actually going to solder the indicator lights. And then I'm going back to the tires as well as the bottom section of the car and keep on engraving, filing, carving into the general shape. As you can see now, I'm working on the bonnet of the car, as well as the front of the car, and also carving into the windscreen, and also using some ball burrs to define the side guards of the front tires, and also using the engravers to make more contrast between the bonnet and the front side of the car. And also utilizing the ball burr to carve out the curvature of the bonnet as well as the windscreen, and also using a flat engraver and a V-shaped engraver to define the lines of the bonnet. And generally just keep on working using the flat engravers, the V-shaped engravers, the ball burrs, the files, and just keep on refining the shape of the car. So here you can see I'm using some dividers and I'm just putting a line parallel against the windscreen, and I'm using a V engraver to make a groove along the windscreen so I can actually solder a fine silver wire to define the windscreen. Now I'm just using some engravers and some very fine small ball burrs to finish off the side mirrors of the car. Now I'm working on the front lights of the car, and I just use a tube cutter to make the headlight rings, and also just making the lens of the headlights. As you can see, I'm doing some carving of the light lens, just some vertical lines, and I'm soldering the headlight rings onto the lens, and then I'm actually cutting those off. It's too long, and I'm just cleaning the back. And here I am, now I'm working on the emblem of the car. I'm piecing out a fine sheet of silver for the emblem. And then I'm doing some carving of the fine details of the emblem. And as you can see, I've placed it onto the wooden block using some super glue, which comes in quite handy. And I'm just engraving the fine details and filing the sides to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. And now I'm working on the front bumper bar. Basically, I just got a round wire, put it through the rolling mill to flatten it a little bit, and used some pliers to bend it into a very shallow curve. And now I'm actually doing the little bolt feature of the bumper bar. So I'm making some little balls to imitate a bolt feature on the bumper bar. And here I am now sort of defining the position of the front headlights, so I know where to actually place the headlights that I've already made. And I'm using a ball burr to make the size exactly the same as the headlights that I've already made. So I used a very fine silver wire to make the windscreen feature, and also here I am stamping the number plate, the rego number of the car. So after stamping, I'm taking the excess metal behind the number plate. And as you can see, I'm using some flat engravers to take excess metal off and making it look more like a hanging number plate. And I'm also now using a very fine V-shaped engraver to do the treads of the tire. So after all the filing, engraving, shaving, forming of the base of the car, it's now time to start soldering the parts onto the car. So I'm actually soldering the bumper bar at the moment. As you can see, very fine solder, very fine soldering job. And after the bumper bar, I've soldered the indicator lights, as well as now I'm soldering the headlights. And I've placed a hole from the back so the solder flows to the front of the car. And as you can see, I'm soldering the emblem, which is quite fine. And now I'm also soldering the windscreen feature. From there, I'm soldering a jump ring to make it into a key charm, and finishing it off using some liver of sulfur to blacken the charm to make it into that classic Fiat 500 look. And here it is after rubbing it down with some bicarb soda. So this is how I made the classic Fiat 500 key charm from scrap silver. I hope you liked it, and happy chopping!